It's 101. How about we give it to 102? Hi, everybody who's just coming into the Zoom room. I see the participants coming in. We're at 18 or so. We're going to get started at 2 after 1 o'clock Central. All right, I'm showing 102. Cami, are you showing 102? All right.
Rock and roll.
Okay. Good afternoon from sunny Chicago, and then good morning or good evening to those who are elsewhere on the planet. Welcome, and thank you for joining today's webinar, where we're going to spend a rapid 30 minutes exploring the B2B pivot to selling D2C, that is direct to consumer, and then specifically how B2B companies can launch a viable e-commerce channel in 3 months or less. Sounds aggressive. We have about 25 minutes of content, and then we're going to leave about 5 minutes at the end for Q&A. But if you have questions along the way, please go ahead and drop them into the Q&A frame within the Zoom app. All right, by way of introduction, my name is Paul Heckel. I'm the Vice President of Digital Experience at Kin + Carta, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague, Cami Chris, the Chief Operating Officer with Kin + Carta Loop. Cami, can you share a little bit about Kin + Carta Loop?
Sure, thanks for having me today, Paul. Loop is the commerce specialist inside Kin + Carta. I personally have about 15 years e-commerce experience with a good global client base, and really excited to share that experience with you today.
Awesome, thank you. So I'd like to set the stage with one of my favorite quotes, and one that I think directly speaks to a B2B organization that is considering going on this direct-to-consumer journey. And that quote is from Amelia Earhart, and she once said, "The most difficult thing is the decision to act. The rest is merely tenacity. The fears are paper tigers." So let's dive into a conversation about taking action, being tenacious, and facing those paper tigers along the way. So the B2B direct-to-consumer proposition is certainly not new to us here in 2020, but in the middle of this crazy COVID-19 pandemic, a D2C offering is more relevant now than ever. And as consultants, we're having conversations about this topic across all segments of B2B industries, and that ranges from agriculture to consumer packaged goods to even industrial manufacturing. To Cami, to get us started, can you get us started by comparing and contrasting the traditional distribution model with a direct-to-consumer proposition?
Yes, of course. Yeah, this slide here is really a current view of traditional distribution and direct-to-consumer process, just to kind of orient ourselves. Exploring moving from B2B to D2C is more important now more than ever because of the challenges we're facing with today's climate, as you mentioned, Paul. But, you know, it might not last forever, but what will likely last is the consumer's views on purchasing in the future. And today is an opportunity for brands and manufacturers to capitalize and explore on moving direct to consumer at pace. A B2B business is likely to have explored the benefits of moving direct to consumer already, but I'd like to spend a little bit of time summarizing some of those benefits as well.
Please.
So, thanks. So moving direct to consumer, some of the benefits being, you know, control and brand clarity. With going D2C, it allows you to really be able to have full control over the brand experience, product, packaging, how your product is really going to market. Speed to market as well. You can make product changes much quicker when you're supporting and in control of your distribution. And then one of the most important things here is really the data and business intelligence that you're going to extrapolate from that D2C process. You'll be able to interface more clearly with the consumer. You'll be able to get that knowledge not only from the customer, but from your data from your online channels, and be able to feed that back into your product in real time. But with that, you know, you might have faced, if you've explored these benefits before, you might have faced challenges. Some of those being fear over cannibalizing current sales channels, lack of budget. You know, your existing channels are your cash cows and probably less risky than going direct to consumer. And then the ever internal change management battle that I'm sure most of you experienced before. This is a big undertaking, not to be taken lightly.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, at the most basic level, we're talking about removing a set of intermediaries from the overall value chain, which clearly presents a set of new opportunities and new efficiencies, but also alongside a clear set of risks. So as a frame of reference, can you share any examples or success stories of businesses that have done this well to date?
Sure, that we very handily have 2 examples here to go through.
Perfect.
Gillette is an example of a company that was reactive to what was going on in the market. Way back in 2010, Gillette enjoyed very little competition, had about 70% market share. And by 2016-17, you had these awesome kind of new direct-to-consumer brands, including Dollar Shave Club and Harry's, and it was eroding Gillette's market share down to about 50%. Their response was to launch Gillette On Demand, which is a platform that allows you to buy razors and blades online. They've done a good job of having a loyalty and rewards-based and a subscription offering. So they've done a good job combating that market share erosion. But it's also worth noting here that there's a considerable amount of consolidation with the behemoths buying our direct-to-consumer friends. You know, Unilever's purchased Dollar Shave Club, and Edgewell has attempted earlier in the year to buy Harry's, but that was blocked by the FTC. I have another example here. It's a little bit different. So, you know, in the case of Gillette being reactive, we've got Trek Bikes, a good friend of ours. They were actually proactive in their D2C proposition and one of the first bike manufacturers to go online. They actually decided upon launch that their dealer network was very important to them. And additionally, you know, putting a bike together if you're buying that online can be daunting. So they made the decision to have a bike shipped directly to their local dealer of the customer's choice. And the benefit of that was kind of twofold. The dealer would get the ongoing consumer relationship with services-based revenue, and the consumer could have their bike put together with confidence. But if you go to their site today, they've actually pivoted very quickly with the from the ship to store experience. They remained agile in their checkout process and were ready. I'm sure they weren't planning for COVID, but they were able to drip out the ship to store option and allow the consumer, in response to those stores not being open, to ship directly to their homes.
Awesome. So when we take a closer look at Trek specifically and their approach, there's a couple of things that stand out to me, and we've grabbed a couple of screenshots from their current .com. First, they're explicitly attempting to improve the consumer confidence around this new transaction model, and they're doing so by making statements like, it's easier than you think, and providing interactive content that walks customers through a process that may be foreign to them. On the product detail page, they're offering, which is the screenshot on the right, they're offering optionality in the different calls to action. The primary one being shipping the bicycle directly to the customer for free, and the secondary one being to find a retailer should the customer prefer that option. So this way, they're fully supporting this new hybrid business model, D2C, and the traditional model. Now, I happen to be a Trek customer, and I remember going through their .com experience back in 07 or 08. I recall it being well organized and had, solid product detail pages, but at the end of the experience, I was a little confused when I couldn't complete my purchase online. I had to pick up the phone and call a few different local bike shops in Chicago for inventory. So I'm really glad to see that the direct-to-consumer option is available today.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Paul, and you're not alone. Pre-COVID, there was about 87% of consumers that would prefer the option to buy direct from the manufacturer or brand if given that, and I'm assuming, post-COVID that number is likely to have increased. And as a consumer, I want to be able to research and purchase in a single flow. That's logical. It's what they want.
Yep, 100%. So we've talked about the idea of getting to market in 90 days or less, which I said might have sounded aggressive at the top of the hour. So how do we actually get started on this journey? A summary of the approach that we're going to dive into in getting live to 90 days is first, assess your readiness, then get real product to market, which we're calling build early, and then finally measure, learn, and iterate, which you do by releasing often. So first, let's talk about the readiness assessment. And at the highest level, the assessment should cover three main areas. The first is finance and operations. The second is people and culture. And the third is product market positioning. And these are really big, meaty questions. And these are illustrative questions here on the slide. Cami, do you think many organizations would even be in a position to confidently answer yes to any or all of these?
Yeah, that's interesting, Paul. I think actually most businesses would likely be saying no to at least one, if not all these questions. But the key, I think, and the opportunist is that you should take those no's into hows. So as an organization, you need to challenge yourself on how you can move at pace to get a product to market. And further on, we're going to talk about that together and get into a level of detail with examples and readiness assessments. So as an example, I want to talk through a fictitious company. Let's call it Snack.io. And that company sells snacks today through grocery and convenience stores. Sales are soft, promotions aren't working. They are having assessed their direct-to-consumer options in the past, but selling one-off bags and chips and snacks online doesn't really make sense. The shipping costs make it, not an option, so they've kind of abandoned it. But with the onset of COVID, they've actually gone, okay, let's look at and assess our readiness and see if we can move and move to market quickly. So if you take the product square, the snack company did a review of their products and found that across 3 categories, they had top-selling products: chips, nuts, and pretzels. They also looked at their margin across those product lines to see what the minimum cart value needed to be to make shipping costs make sense and potentially offer free shipping. And longer term, they actually looked at partnering with other chip companies to create a unique product offering of their own snack marketplace. They could have other companies' snack items potentially on their site or on another site. Moving on to the marketing, snack company knew that they had a customer base that was enthusiastic about their brand, so they created a campaign for consumers to move through social platforms like Facebook, Instagram, to create and generate content with contents around like, share, win campaigns. They performed research and found, most people would be repeat customers. So they pivoted to selling those top items and one-offs to a monthly subscription box. Then they looked how they could launch or focus to a distinct customer group. And when they actually first started, they were best known in the Midwest, and their sales are still highest there. So it made sense to focus and target on the smaller demographic for pilot. Moving on to technology, they knew they needed to get going at pace and be able to utilize learnings in the long term. So they chose to go API first, microservice, which they could expand upon in the future. Inventory, they had a warehouse in Chicago and took the opportunity to ring fence that inventory for the pilot within their existing warehouse with a manual process in the first instance. Customer service was really important, and it is an important piece in all of this. Is, you know, they have a brand promise, and responsiveness to that customer was key. So they looked at their existing B2B setup, and they chose to dedicate a number of representatives from there to the consumer proposition. They trained that team to solely focus on D2C, and they also made sure that team had a mechanism to understand and capture the feedback that they were getting on the product when they took calls or emails into that call center.
Thanks, Cami. I mean, yes, Snackio, a super helpful example. I do just want to reiterate to the audience that a proper diligent readiness assessment would go much deeper than this, and the Snackio example is illustrative only. But you will notice that the sample questions, you know, beneath each domain are not binary. You know, can we, should we? They're how and where and what risks. So again, it's not the if we should, it's the how we should. So after the readiness assessment, we move on to building early. And if we're thinking about an e-commerce experience, there's a million places to start. That's probably an exaggeration, but many, many places to start. So Cami, how do you think about building early? What does that look like?
Yeah, when we kick off discovery or a client engagement that's starting a digital commerce solution, the requirements you see here, you know, from the left, it's promotions, exclusive offers, price lists, and on the right, you see loans and warehouses. This is a complex vision of what a commerce solution could look like. And on day one, we hear from our clients, you know, this is what we want. We also hear, I want to be like Amazon, Apple, Nike. Select your favorite brand. They'll go, check this out, check how they do it. We want that. Well, guess what? They're not those guys. It takes years, if not decades of experience to get to the point to have a feature-rich commerce data set that you can utilize proficiently. So we really want to push, you know, starting at the basics, which you can quickly iterate upon, capitalizing on the opportunity now, and go lean. So we urge companies to start out with a basic best practice commerce approach, get us out of the gate quickly. There's a number of technologies that will allow us to iterate and move that way, and we're going to talk more about those technologies in a few slides.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest challenges I've seen our clients struggle with, not just in the B2B or the e-commerce domain, really across you know, the entire digital product space. And they struggle with what I would call disciplined product management, having the confidence and having the courage to go to market with a simple yet viable solution. You're putting yourself out there in a brand new way. It's a brand new revenue stream. There's opportunities, there's missed opportunities. And so it does require a lot of confidence to put something out there that's minimally functional, but certainly viable. So you talked about, you know, you showed us the end state, you showed us the simple start. What would a plan look like that evolves us from that simple start initial pilot moving towards a more enterprise grade solution?
Yeah, so as we mentioned, a typical enterprise e-commerce project can take, you know, a minimum of 9 months to years, depending on the organization and the requirements. But we're able to move faster if we decouple the process from pilot to future. So starting over on the left in the pilot, we recommend starting with a base commerce product, and there's a few in the market depending on your business and your requirements that we like best. That base product will allow us to get to market quickly. And what do I mean there? Like, that commerce platform should at a minimum manage product data, inventory, ordering systems, including checkout. From a design perspective, we're going to begin with a templated approach to the design and content to get to market quickly. And then most important, it's very important here that we identify our KPIs and our analytics strategy, so we have a clear path to being able to consume information back from not only the site, but from our operations as well. After launch of pilot, we're going to take the opportunity to look at that data that we talked about, and we're going to further operationalize any feedback that we've received into that near term. We're going to look at expanding inventory capabilities. We're going to add product details, additional product details. So more documentation, additional imagery, maybe some ratings and reviews. Personalization could come into play. And as we move into the future, and as we're going through from pilot to near to future, we're going to be gathering that feedback from the organization, and we're going to be able to be building our enterprise grade solution at the same time.
Awesome. Yeah, a couple of things to call. I mean, you mentioned analytics and KPIs, and I can't stress enough the importance of doing that the right way. Some organizations think, you know, they've installed Google tagging on their site. Sorry, I'm having a cat invade me. They've installed Google Analytics on their site and they're done. But the key is closing the feedback loop and making sure that somebody in the organization is capable of looking at that data, understanding and analyzing it, and closing the feedback loop with recommendations on the roadmap or the backlog. Can't stress that enough. I've seen failures time and time again. And so another comment here is, by no means is this a hard and fast playbook. You as an organization will have to choose the feature sets that you want to go live with minimally, and in what sequence. So don't take this as you know, the Bible of how to get started. There's optionality in all of this. The most important thing is that you get something to market that's functional, that's performant, and reliable enough for customers to want to come back to. All right, so first assess readiness, then build early, and finally release often. So on paper, that sounds super, super simple. Cami, what pitfalls are organizations encountering when they try to go through this journey, or what are they commonly tripping up on?
Yeah, I would say there's 3 common challenges we see. Typically, businesses want to boil the ocean and get everything 100% correct. If we can be focused and disciplined at just getting the product to market and iterating, that's really important. The second one is replicating legacy ways of working. You know, this is an opportunity to embrace change management in the organization, and not embracing that change and just rebuilding what you already have is, you know, it doesn't make sense. And the third one is really assessing ROI on the features we're trying to bring to market. We should be challenging the organization on every ask on, you know, how many more things do I sell if we bring this thing into our product?
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I always like to close out these types of conversations with either like a crystal ball or one final takeaway. So if you had one recommendation or a parting thought, parting words of wisdom for the audience, what would you leave them with?
Yeah, don't be afraid to move at pace or even get some of it wrong. We understand how to get the basics right. We understand how to do commerce best practice, and then you can build around that foundation. So deliver early, continuously improve, and take advantage of the lessons learned from performance in market.
Excellent, awesome advice. And that is a wrap for today's webinar content. I hope you all found this informative and have something to take back to your respective organizations. Now, we are right on time. It is a minor miracle. So we did reserve time for a few questions from the audience. So I'm gonna pull up the panel and see what we have in the queue. Feel free to add anything, even at the last minute. We're happy to take those on. The first one is, if I'm not yet interested in going direct to consumer and I only want to stand up a digital sales channel for my existing partners in supply chain, does the same approach apply? So don't want to go D2C, but you know, embarking on a new digital sales channel for the existing business model. Cami, does the same approach apply?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, there are deeper complexities with the business to business model, but the same approach and strategy absolutely applies. And we have have done that before. 90 days is slightly aggressive, but if we can be disciplined in our approach and requirements and get a product to market and test and iterate, then absolutely.
Okay, cool. The next one is if I'm interested in only the readiness assessment portion of this approach, is this something that Kin and Carta would offer?
Yep, we do readiness assessments a lot. We're happy to take that offline and work with you as a workshop with a tangible output of steps you need to take as a business to make sure you're ready to embark on your 90-day journey.
Okay, cool. And we'll have contact info on our last slide here in case you want to follow up. Whoever asked that question wants to follow up and discuss further. There's one more in the queue, and that is, do you have any advice on whether I should integrate a new commerce experience with my existing web property or create something separately? Do you have a view on that, Cami?
Yeah, I think that the end state, you should be looking at how to integrate to your existing properties. But if we're looking to go at pace and get a pilot to market, we should decouple the pilot with any existing legacy systems on launch.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's good advice. Think in the long term, but you're going to create a ton of drag if you mire yourself in all the dependencies and the legacy infrastructure that's already standing there. Okay, that is it for the questions in the Q&A panel. So that brings us to a close for today. Thank you all so much for attending, and until next time, please stay safe and stay healthy. Take care.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Cami.